Um, what what information do you have at all about the circumstances of his arrest?
Well, Evan was in a city east of Moscow last week when basically we lost communication with him. I mean, our colleagues and editors who were in touch with him lost touch, and the next time he showed up was the following day in a Moscow courthouse where he was being arraigned. The exact circumstances I can't exactly comment on. Not fully aware of, but Evan had been reporting for us for over a year, but he had been reporting from Moscow and across Russia for 5 or 6 years, and he was doing his job. He was there collecting information, talking to people, getting firsthand accounts of what life is like inside of Russia, one of the few Western reporters still based on the ground, and he was producing the sort of journalism that you just referred to.
Mm. And how do you? I mean, you're a foreign correspondent at the Wall Street Journal, and obviously these things are personal, but there are not that many foreign and especially Western journalists left there in Russia. Is it something that you would have been happy to do? Do you think, or do you think you would have been worried about your safety?
I think both. I think Evan and I have known each other for just over a year. I met him one of his first weeks at the Journal, and we have a very his biography was very familiar. He was born in the U.S. to immigrants from the Soviet Union who still speak Russian, and spoke to him in Russian growing up, and he maintained an affinity for. I mean, he very much an American kid. Loves sports, loves music, and loves reading. But he also developed this affinity and interest for the part of the world that his family came from, and the language that he developed, and the breadth of knowledge that he developed about Russia really helped him access and understand the place. And so he was really delighted and felt privileged to be able to be in this country for the past 5 years, reporting on some of the most momentous and consequential stories in the world.
Mm.
And these sorts of risks are things that we as foreign correspondents operating in dangerous places, we go in eyes wide open. But it is, this is I think this is the sort of risk that he was aware of, but he felt that the story was too important. And at the end of the day, this is not, the only fault here is on the Russian government for arresting a journalist who was simply doing his job and was accredited to be doing this job.
What about other journalists that are there, and perhaps journalists who've left? I mean, do you know how many are still operating there, and what's happened to Evan mean in terms of other journalists perhaps coming out?
I don't know the latest numbers. I know that uh, immediately after Evan's arrest, we pulled our Moscow bureau chief out, and several other news organizations pulled their correspondents out. I mean, this is undoubtedly going to have a chilling effect on reporting inside of Russia. It's this when a journalist is pulled off of the street while doing his job, and facing 20 years in prison, it's going to have a huge impact on the free press, on the ability for the rest of the world to understand what's actually happening inside of Russia. So it's incumbent upon all of us, and particularly the U.S. government, to make sure that Evan is released, and this sort of stuff is just not accepted.
I'm just looking at a readout of a phone call between the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Antony Blinken, and Sergei Lavrov claiming that Evan was caught red-handed attempting to obtain classified information, and that his case will be handled by Russian courts. Um, what do you say to that?
And the charges against Evan are bogus. They're absurd. Evan has a long track record of uh, conducting journalism in Russia. That's what he was doing, and anything to the contrary is just wrong.